Partnership is an obligatory part of many calls for proposals. That civil society organisations should be working in partnership, someone in their own country or organisation in another country. And it is a challenge for a lot of organisations. There's no magic bullet for partnership, for solving the issue. It's another one where it's a long process and there's a lot of hard work that has to be done. And the best way, I think, the best way to get NGOs to start thinking more seriously about partnership is to get them to discuss really what is at the root of a partnership, to understand the principles involved in partnership before you start thinking about exactly what a partner is going to do in a project and what you require of a partner. To start thinking more of the fundamentals of partnership. There are, of course, as the slide says, the EU looks at partnerships in a very particular way. It categorises organisations as partners, formal partners, or as associates, or as subcontractors. So in terms of definitions or terminology, we have these three areas that we need to think about for the EU. In terms of exactly how the EU views these three words, there are some fundamental differences between them in a formal way. And it's all about how the relationship is formed and what basis it is. In an EU grant contract, a partner has some responsibilities and is able to actually receive some of the money and do some activities with that money. The partner therefore has to meet the same eligibility criteria as the grant contractor. There's an important issue there. However, the grant contract is only ever with one organisation. There's only one grant beneficiary. So legally, the partners don't have any responsibility for the funding, to be accountable for it. Okay? The grant beneficiary is the only organisation that has to be accountable for the grant, for the money. Even though a partner might be using some of the money and spending some of it. So that's a very important distinction. There are a lot of partners who feel that they should have stronger ownership in the project. But partners don't manage the budget. They're not given the money. The grant doesn't go into the partner's bank account. It goes into the grant beneficiaries. And this is a big issue where partners often feel very frustrated because actually they don't have much ownership in the project. And it is not, unfortunately, the principle of equity often is missing because of the way the EU views the partnership. Associates are organisations who make some contribution to making the project successful in some way. Maybe they are providing some kinds of materials, venues, expertise. They might get paid a per diem for going to an activity or to staying somewhere and travel costs, but they will not be receiving any of the project budget to implement activities. So they have a much less close relationship to the contract. And in reality, the contracting authority, whether it be the EC, the delegation, or the CSTU in Turkey or in Croatia or Macedonia, the associates actually have nothing to do with the contract. So CSTU and the contracting authority really aren't interested in them. Subcontractors is something almost completely different. A subcontractor is an organisation of any kind. It might be a business, it could be non-profit, who is tendered for services or goods. Okay, and they have been subcontracted to supply a service or a good according to a terms of reference or a specification. So this involves an illegal arrangement. It's a legal and commercial arrangement, and these don't. Subcontractors cannot, of course, be written into any project proposal because subcontracting has to go through a tendering process. So when you're writing a grant application, you don't know who will be your subcontractors. If you do, it means you won't be going through a fair tendering process and it will be against EU rules. So you cannot name subcontractors in a grant application. They will come later if it's necessary. I mean, many grant projects don't involve any subcontracting. So we have these three types of relationships. And we're just going to focus a little bit on partners and partnership. And so I think the best way to get organised to think about partnership is to think really what does it mean, what's at the root of a partnership, and how are you going to build up a relationship with a partner. The Spanish organisations is like many organisations which have a non-profit character, but they're really into EU funding as a business. And they're chasing partnerships. And they want to get these funding. So they were very happy because they secured a monthly salary for one of their staff to receive money through this project. And there are many organizations which are operating like this, particularly in the member states, because there is this understanding that a lot of NGOs outside of the union are looking for partnerships.
Cannot do without that.
And they need to do this. But I mean, personally, this is not a bad thing. These organizations also need to generate income. It's a non-profit organization, but they need the income to keep going to support their other activities. What she's come across is one of the dangers of the associates is very often you get organizations who you invite to make some kind of contribution to be involved in the project. And if they are a business-orientated organization, maybe they're a business or maybe they're a more business-orientated NGO, they tend to see the relationship in a very commercial way. And they want to try to take control and to get resources and to take elements of the project away. So you have to be careful about these relationships and what people want. There's an issue here about how you set the relationship from the beginning. And unfortunately, what tends to happen is that most organizations do not have resources to meet up beforehand, because they wait for the grant. But I think it's really important for any call for proposals which involves an obligatory partnership, you should encourage organizations to write in at the beginning, in the first month of the project, a visit, a planning mission. Either go to the country or they come to you, whatever. Need to spend 2 or 3 days together, working out the project, doing the work planning. It should really be there in the first month of the project. I mean, there are quite a few reasons why. I mean, a lot of it is written into the civil society dialogue communication from the EC, which really is talking about the need not only for the candidate countries and potential candidate countries to have a better understanding of the Union, but also for the member states to have a better understanding of the candidate countries and the potential candidate countries. So the idea of having the partnership is to push this exchange of information, to learn about each other. So I mean, it's learning about each other generally, socially, culturally, but also in very technical areas to bring in expertise which maybe is missing from your countries, that the EU can bring in that kind of expertise. So increasingly you'll see both under the EPA 1 Civil Society Facility, some of the other components in EPA, and certainly under the instruments for the neighbourhood instrument, you'll see that partnership is obligatory to push this exchange. And as with so much of what the EU funds, a lot of it is just a simple approach of learning by doing. For me, a lot of the responsibility actually lies with people like you, because you're in the position to give advice. You're close to your colleagues in the civil society organisations, and I think that people like you who do have experience, you have to guide other organisations through this process whereby they can make a decision whether it is right for them to go for a call or not. There is some risk, and they have to understand the risks that are involved in it, but I mean, there has to be some risk-taking as well. And I think there are two important things. One is doing the hard work to research potential partners. And the other thing is understanding really what you want out of the partnership and being able to be very, very clear about it. I have a few slides which try to talk about some of these issues, which I would encourage you to share these ideas with organizations that you support. Firstly, there should be a very clear understanding of what this term means, away from all of the EU jargon about partners, associates and subcontractors. We need to be clear really what we want out of a partnership. And there are all kinds of definitions, but there's an organization called the Partnering Initiative, which produces a lot of materials around supporting partnership, and they have a definition of partnership which I think sums up all of the key principles that should be involved, and those being these three principles. Partnerships will only work if these are followed. So there should be equity. So even if the organizations are completely unbalanced, you know, one is 100 staff, big turnover, and one is like 3 people and a dog in a small office, there has to be equity when you come to the table, when you discuss things. Yeah. Secondly, there has to be mutual benefit. No one does anything for nothing. You know? Everyone is looking for what's in it for them, for their organization, for their mission, for their target group, whatever it is. So there has to be some kind of mutual benefit within the partnership. And there has to be transparency, so that all the partners understand what's going on. So without those 3 cornerstones, things won't work. I have a couple of slides which is really a very simple checklist. Like, if you're looking to build up a partnership, what should you be doing? Particularly if it is directly related to a call for proposals, what you should be doing about it. And these are very simple things, but often organizations just don't think about them. So it should be written down really what the partnership needs, what you want from the partnership. It should be clear what kind of organization, the sector, the size, the way it operates, the working culture of the organization, where it is, what languages are spoken, how are you going to communicate. And we need to be very aware of mismatches. The example, because you were basically quite negative that this wasn't a good match in this case study, although I don't think it was not too bad a match, but you have to be aware of mismatches. You need to be able to make sure that the organization, you can actually present your own organization, so it's clearly understand what your organization is, what's it doing, what's the foundation of it, what's the mission. You need to think about the resources to establish a partnership, because it does take resources. Although these days we kind of use these great things like Skyping, video conferencing and stuff like that, so you don't always have to travel to meet people, but you can. And we need to try to look at what networks or intermediaries are available to help support a partnership. And this last one, I think this is very much with the call for proposals in mind. You need to make sure that if it's a new organization, you need to be clear who are you talking to. Is it the right person? Is it the decision maker in the organization? The right decision maker? Because often there are some relationships you start building up and then you realize that the person that you've been talking to really doesn't have any authority at all in the organization, and the relationship isn't going to go anywhere. You need to be very clear about the timelines, particularly if you know that there's a history of very slow progress on the evaluation of grant applications. Within the member states, things do tend to move much quicker. And so organizations in the union will be used to quicker activities. So you maybe want to warn them, you know, this is Turkey, it's going to take 18 months before we get a decision on the project or something. So they understand what the timeline is on these things. There are all kinds of resources or places you can go to help look for partnerships. Within the European Union, I'm sure you are aware of a lot of these civil society umbrella organizations which can help to do this matchmaking. Some of them actually have online kind of databases which you can search through. But many of these organizations they are mandated to help organizations outside of the EU to find partners in the EU. So many of them should offer support if you call them or email them and say that you're looking for partners in a certain sector.